What's up, Nootropics lovers? This is Monsel and I'm with Nootropedia, and today I'm in Hallerstadt, Austria, which is one of the most idyllic locations I've ever been in the world. But today we're going to talk about a region of the world so far away from here. We're going to talk about Silicon Valley. We're going to talk about the 3 nootropics that Silicon Valley is using right now to improve their cognitive performance and make some world-changing technologies. So let's get started.
I was thinking about the day we met, when the love came rushing out and you were empty-handed, filled with a regret. Our love is running out.
So guys, Silicon Valley is one of the homes for biohacking, nootropics, cognitive enhancement in general, and some of these nootropic trends you may or may not have heard of. But I'm going to tell you how they're utilizing these tools to improve their cognitive performance and do some pretty amazing things. So guys, number 1 is Modafinil. Now, Dave Asprey, who is the Bulletproof executive and a software founder who has spent time in Silicon Valley, assumes that nearly 60 to 75% of Silicon Valley executives are using Modafinil in order to improve cognitive performance. Now, this drug started off as a tool for narcolepsy, people who had trouble sleeping, and it's a wakefulness enhancer, but it is far more powerful for focus and concentration than many people believe. It's also far better than caffeine for a number of these Silicon Valley executives as well. So some of the advantages of Modafinil over a traditional pharmaceutical drug like Adderall, for example. So even though Modafinil works similar to Adderall in the sense that it operates through modulating dopamine and adrenaline, it has a lower addiction potential, less euphoria than Adderall, and it is often considered safer than amphetamine-based drugs for that reason. Now, according to many meta-analysis and even studies done by the US government and military, Modafinil is consistently able to increase focus and concentration, but that's really not where all the benefits come from. Even though this is very stimulating, many people use it to get work done, the real benefit of Modafinil is an improved working memory. Now, working memory is often thought to be a major facet of creativity, and so people utilize Modafinil so they are both focused, concentrated on the task at hand, but at the same time also experience more creativity. Now guys, just because a ton of Silicon Valley executives use Modafinil doesn't mean that it's right for you, and it doesn't mean that it is going to be a useful tool. It's not a limitless pill, and it's not going to turn you into the next Silicon Valley executive. However, it could be a useful solution for you if you are trying to improve your focus, creativity, and keep in mind that many of the best and brightest people are using this type of compound. So number 2 is microdosing LSD. Now, it's no surprise that Silicon Valley and LSD go hand in hand. They have a long history together, and in fact, even the greatest figures to come out of this region, like Steve Jobs, have vocally expressed their experiences with LSD in the San Francisco Bay Area. So studies on microdosing have gone back for decades of years. In 1966, James Fadiman, a researcher who looked at different psychedelic compounds like mescaline, psilocybin, and LSD, found that many people were able to come up with breakthrough discoveries through the use of microdosing. Now, this initial trial was relatively small, and unfortunately the government cracked down only a year later, but in his study, 44% of the participants who brought a problem to this microdosing study found a solution. So many of these people were architects, business people, engineers, and they brought real problems they've been struggling with for many years, did a session of microdosing, and found solutions. Many of them became patents and other theories that improved how we live today. Now, I've had the privilege of interviewing Jamie Wheel from the Flow Genome Project, and he shared with me exactly what is going on in places like Google and many of these other Silicon Valley startups, where microdosing and simply taking LSD in general have greatly improved their ability to make creative discoveries and get into flow states that allow them to achieve more with their projects. Now, the final component to this is modern fMRI functional MRIs have shown what these psychedelic drugs do to the brain. Many studies are showing that it helps with depression, anxiety, but not just in the short term, but also in the long term. Anywhere between 12 to 14 months later, many of the subjects are experiencing better quality of life and happiness. And this comes through these psychedelic entheogenic compounds. Now again, LSD, many of these compounds are illegal drugs, so I'm not recommending you use them. They should be used with care if you do find them, but keep in mind that I'm just sharing with you what Silicon Valley is using, what has worked for them, and what has also worked for myself. Now number 3 is exogenous ketones. And exogenous ketones have been brought into the mainstream and definitely to the Silicon Valley area, largely through Tim Ferriss. And Tim Ferriss has a podcast that is watched by or listened to by millions of people, and specifically guests like Dominic D'Agostino and Peter Attia have come on, discussed their usage of exogenous ketones, which has flourished this new industry. Now there's some evidence to suggest that exogenous ketones can improve focus and concentration. Most of the studies actually focus on improving diseased models, which means people who have certain diseases and how exogenous ketones or ketogenic diets can help them. But unfortunately, in my opinion, the evidence is lacking for the use of exogenous ketones. Now, you might feel and experience subjectively that they work for you, especially with fasting, and that's great. I don't want to recommend you change just because the scientific literature is lacking, but it is something to keep in mind. This is a trend and not necessarily one that is well researched. So guys, anyway, one of the things that you can do right now in order to use a nootropic that is popular in Silicon Valley is to use exogenous ketones. Now unfortunately, Modafinil requires a prescription and LSD is obviously illegal, so I can't recommend any of those. But anyway, go ahead and click the link right here. You'll be taken to the exogenous ketones called beta hydroxybutyrate. So again, go ahead and click right here, but more importantly, subscribe to the channel. If you've enjoyed this, if you want to learn more about nootropics, go ahead and check out the rest of the videos. This is just something about the trends of Silicon Valley, but at the end of the day, you want to find out what's going to work for you specifically and solve your specific problems.